Hello and welcome to a deck tech of Azorius Stiflenought. So we're kind of changing things up here, switching from Modern to Legacy. The reason why we're going to be doing a Legacy video here is because I'm prepping for a Team Trios event that's coming up this Sunday. I'm doing this recording the 2nd of August. The gameplay that I'm about to show you too is something that was previously recorded but not streamed. But yeah, we'll get straight to the point here. We are going to be piloting this deck, and just for all things Azorius, we wanted to try this out in Legacy. I've been kind of eyeballing this deck for some time. Been kind of playtesting things like Nadu Breakfast and Mystic Forge. Kind of found those decks to be not all that bad, but I was kind of finding out that like Mystic Forge was kind of a weak deck against all the blue matchups. I would win some, but I was mostly losing some, and then my results weren't doing so hot. So I kind of wish I would have done a league with Mystic Forge just to kind of post a video on here, but instead we're just gonna play what I know best of all things blue-white and just play this. We'll just kind of get straight to it. Here we're just playing 20 lands. We're playing things like Urza Saga to get things like Dreadnought, Piffy Needle. We have this mainboard vacuum just for the graveyard matchups like Reanimator and Oops All Spells, which tend to be kind of a nuisance in this format. But with me not playing this format in months, there's going to be a lot of exploring and most likely a lot of mistakes throughout this video, so I do apologize. I can't say I will be playing this perfectly, or just in general when I ever play Magic, ever playing perfectly, but this is a format that I feel like I could always improve on drastically. But yeah, with Urza Saga here, you would think it's kind of a combo with Dress Down, but it's mainly used here just to get the Dreadnoughts. We can also kind of play around the Dress Down with Urza Saga to be able to just use this just for the Dreadnoughts themselves. Kind of comes up from time to time where we maybe do use it to make construct tokens and start being down. But overall, we're just using it just to get these cards in play. Doing one of mental misstep, I wish. Minor misstep. Trying this out over like a third ponder, just because it can counter things like Brainstorm, Ponder, Fatal Push, Swords, Reanimate. So those are kind of like some cards to name right off the bat. But our main combo here, we're just trying to go Torpor Orb with Dress Down or Dress Downs to cast our things like Dreadnought. We can do this as early as turn, turn 2. Speaking of turn 2, we could even go turn 2 Null Drifter by using Ancient Tomb and then playing an island of some sort, casting this on turn 2 after following it up with a turn 1 Torpor Orb. So deck's really cool. It's a lot of fun. Oh, we can also play a turn 2 Stock Up. Worst case scenario if we don't have these cards. And Stock Up is great for maximizing our hand, getting some value, getting 2 cards out of it, which can end up mattering for things like Force of Will and getting a blue card. We'll just kind of switch it over to the sideboard here really quick. We got things like Rest in Peace and Graph-Figures Cage for the Reanimator matchups, Conqueror for artifacts like Mystic Forge. That deck is also one of the top contenders in the format right now, so we're playing at least 2 of. I can probably see playing like 3 or 4 of that card. This card is just fantastic. Ending for just some of the cheap interactions, maybe beatdowns. Wrath the Skies for artifact decks, also against Mystic Forge. Heartbringer for Mystic Forge or anything that plays a greedy mana base. Force Negation for the combo decks, mostly Mystic Forge as well too. Hull Breacher. Definitely have a lot of hate against Mystic Forge, but Hull Breacher is also a great card for extra card draw stuff. Hydroblast for painter decks, Consign, just overall great for Storm and once again Mystic Forge. Probably take a shot for every time I've mentioned Mystic Forge already, but yeah, we're gonna jam this deck and kind of see how we do. We're definitely gonna do a league of 5 matches, but yeah, stay tuned. round 1 with Azorius Stiflenought. Here I'm just extending out my sideboard just to kind of show like what I might be sideboarding in and out for in between matches while I'm playing this game. But yeah, we have a pretty good starting hand here. We have part of our combo here with Dress Down, just looking for like a Null Drifter or a Phyrexian Dreadnought. I do like the fact that we do have Pithneedle mainboard here, because with a hand like this, I'm kind of wanting to just go on the blind and just name Wasteland in case this is a matchup that is Wasteland. So here, I think I was just contemplating on what to ship back. I kind of figured it made sense just to put back a Force of Will. Now, by pitching that other Force of Will, it kind of leaves us a blue card short. But we do have Force of Will to keep something in check, depending on what this matchup is. Being that this is recorded, this is we are up against Storm here. But while we were playing this game, I wasn't really too sure what we were up against. So on the blind here, I just threw out a Pithneedle turn 1 and just named Wasteland. So then that way our Tundra doesn't get Wasteland. So we ship it back. Luckily enough, we were on the play for this game, so kind of gives us a good head start here. Our opponent leads with a Burning Catacombs. Not really too sure what we're up against here. I am pretty happy to see a third land here, just to cast our stock up for next turn. So we just play a Fledged Strand and just ship it back. So our opponent cracks a Burning Catacombs in a turn. In a previous build, I was actually running the Botch and Roll version, the band, which I wish I would have recorded and posted up with this. I did like the main board Stifle, and there was a game that I was able to actually stifle my opponent's fetch land turn 1. Feels really good. But here our opponent is casting a defense grid, and I'm thinking, well, this is game 1, and from what it looks like we are playing against Storm. So we definitely want to Force of Will that, since we want to set up our next turn for stock up. And stock up can at least draw us 2 more cards, and hopefully see like another maybe what I want to say, like another Force of Will and a blue card here. So we crack our fetch land, get in a dual land, and we cast stock up over Null Drifter. If we cast Null Drifter, it just dies to the evoke trigger. So we see 5 cards here, and we easily take a Force of Will and a stock up. I don't want to pitch this stock up with Force of Will if we have to, but it is better than losing on turn 2 if with this just kind of like protection here. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. So turn 4, our opponent's struggling with just 1 land in play, which is good for us. Looks like they were getting a little bit heavy on that defense grid, hoping that it would resolve. So we cast a stock up, see these 5 cards, and we're kind of, wasn't really too sure what to really take here at first, but I think if I remember, I believe I take either Dress Down or Torpor Orb. It's kind of interesting. I can't remember which one I ended up taking. I think, if memory serves, I think I take the Dress Down because I have Force of Will in my hand. Part of me wants to take the Torpor Orb since it's a permanent that stays in play and it works well with all my future Dreadnoughts and Null Drifters. But yeah, I decided to take a land and a Dress Down since I was needing to draw another land. For the next turn, I would like to set up 5 mana so we can go Dress Down into Null Drifter. So our opponent just ships back the turn with just 1 land in play. And here we draw a Brainstorm. I actually wanted to use the Brainstorm here just to kind of dig a little bit deeper and to put 2 cards that we don't really want to use. Gotta love the Brainstorm and Fetch Land pitch. It's almost like Ancestral Recall in this format in ways. So we're pitching Sword Splasher since this is not the matchup for it. We played land. Looks like we end up playing a Torpor Orb here. We did put back the dress down since we do have a what is it? A Torpor Orb, or sorry, we play the Torpor Orb, put the dress down back on top. It was almost really hard to keep track of everything going on here. Our opponent does suspend a Gaia's Will, which I'm not really too afraid of. If that's what they're doing for their turn 1 play, or just for their turn, that seems pretty good for us. So we essentially got a time walk here. We cracked the land. If I remember correctly, I just wanted to fetch those 2 cards away, since it just wasn't going to be all that great. So we cast the Null Director, since now we are going to be able to keep a 4/4 with Annihilator in play. Draw 2 cards, and it's just 2 lands. Starting to get a little bit flooded here, so we end up casting a Stock Up. So we want to take Lorien Reveal just so we have Force of Will pitch with it. And I mean, honestly, I think we take a Ancient Tomb here on top of it, just so we at least have another land. Worst case scenario, we can always cast this Lorien Revealed for 5 mana to draw 3 cards, and it doesn't seem all that bad. So our opponent takes down on their Suspend, and we're looking to just kind of have our opponent just kind of not play anything this turn, maybe miss on a land drop or something like it. Yeah, they throw a Lion's Eye Diamond, which I was kind of starting to wonder if they were now maybe trying to combo off here. I mean, they have 7 cards in hand, so in order for them to activate this Lion's Eye Diamond, they would have to discard their hand. I wasn't really too sure here. I was sitting in the tank here, wanted to actually use Force of Will pitch this. And it's tough because I never know what's right against Storm. So I just kind of let it resolve because I kind of wanted to use maybe Force of Will for maybe something else. That being the case here, it looks like they just played it just so they can kind of get around the Annihilator trigger. And it wasn't something that was kind of like on my mind until I think it went to my next turn. That I just wanted to simply just attack in. So our opponent has a Lion's Eye Diamond and a land in play. So if we make this attack, they have to sacrifice one of these permanents in play. So we attack, which triggers our Annihilator 1. Our opponent gets rid of the Lion's Eye Diamond, which makes sense here. I think that's the whole reason why they wanted to play it, just so they can not lose their land. Now, if we did Force of Will it, they would only have just the land, and then they would just have no permanents in play, which probably would be the best spot for us to be in. So we play an Ancient Tomb. Throw out a Phyrexian Dreadnought, since this is pretty much showing lethal here. And we really just want to pass the turn, since for 5 mana we can just hardcast Force of Will here. Now that our opponent's playing another Lion's Eye Diamond, this is where I'm not really sure if I want to let it resolve now or not, or actually counter it. But we let it resolve. Now our opponent plays a second one, and they only have 6 cards in hand. Still not too sure here because, again, Storm can be always tricky. I feel like not countering the right one seems bad sometimes, but yeah, had we countered maybe the first one or second one here, I'm kind of curious how our opponent would have done this turn. But here, this is where I kind of get a little bit scared, since now our opponent has a Veil of Summer. We countered that. We just want to counter that just so we have a way to just get around any kind of like uncounterable stuff. Now, one thing I did forget about this is our opponent goes Echo if he wants to reveal their hand. So if memory serves right here, if I'm drawing a Force of Will, I can actually counter whichever spell is the most threatening option here. And here they're just trying to go off. I kind of thought, oh my god, I'm pretty much dead here. And our opponent goes just Echo Viance again. And now we have the Force of Will to actually counter whatever stuff that they can play. So I'm a little concerned about if our opponent is actually going to win on this turn. They're throwing a lot of like free spells here, like a Chromox, Lion's Eye Diamond. I'm honestly thinking, well, Storm count is 12. I really probably should just wrap it up and just kind of go to the next game. Now, if this was on paper, I would probably concede a lot sooner. But I just, since it's online and it's a chess clock, I just want them to basically like play it out. Now, this one kind of threw me off. I have never seen this dragon before. I guess it's out of like a precon commander deck. And it's an activated ability and not a spell, so we can't counterspell this, unfortunately. And our Force of Will is going to have to be discarded. Now, this is probably one of those times where playing mainboard Stifle would actually be fantastic. Now, we brainstormed to put 2 cards back, just so we don't have to discard them. And I was thinking about playing another Brainstorm, but it didn't seem like it was really worth it because we're basically going to just put whatever 2 cards back and just redraw them. So once again, we have the Force of Will with a blue card here. And I'm still kind of wondering here if our opponent's going to be able to like combo off. Storm count is at 14. And it looked like they just kind of whiffed on their hand. With one blue mana open, I was actually really surprised with how that turn played out. I seriously thought I was just dead. And our opponent was just stuck on 1 land for like the entire game there. Storm can just kind of just win out of nowhere sometimes, and it's scary. So here we go to game 2. We're sideboarding some of these cards in, taking out like Swords of Plowshares since they're not really playing any kind of creatures. Same thing with Brazen Borrower. We could use it to like bounce maybe like a Lion's Eye Diamond. We're really not too worried about any kind of non-land permanents since a lot of their stuff is like stuff that they can cast with spells. Epiphany Needle, we're definitely taking out. I mean, we could try to name things like Lotus Petal or Lion's Eye Diamond, but the thing is, it gets around mana abilities, so Epiphany Needle is just a terrible card in this matchup. So we're taking those cards out for these. Things like Rest in Peace, Consign to Memory. It's great against the Storm matchup if we are worried about that, if they're going to play like Tendrils of Agony, which I think our opponent would have been able to like just win right off the bat if they had Tendrils of Agony. So I was a little bit surprised. But we're playing game 2. Our opponent is mulligan down to 6. And we're pretty much keeping this hand since we have like a Ghost Vacuum and we can hit like anything like Echo of Eons, or if they try to play Guy's Will, since we can also get rid of cards out of their graveyard. So opponent leads turn 1 with 2 Lotus Petals. Aggressive start here. Our opponent gambles and looks like they discard that Hellkite. Not sure if that's the card that they search for. They gamble again. And this was actually kind of funny because they just lose game 2 and just on turn 1, and it looks like they actually just discarded the cards that they were needing with the gamble. So I think this was just very unlucky with our opponent. Really unfortunate, but it's kind of funny that we went on turn 1 since our opponent just kind of whiffed there. I'm almost guessing that that's what happened, was they discarded the cards that they probably searched for and probably just had nothing else to really cast here. Probably no lands in play since they conceded here. So yeah, off to a good start. So we are 1-0 currently, and we're going to play game 2 here. or I'm sorry, round 2. And it looks like we take a mulligan here. And we're going to keep this hand because we have 2 dress downs. We are going to ship 1 back. Or, no, I guess we're not shipping that back. It was a land that we are shipping back since we have like 4 lands in play. And we kind of want to use our dress downs just in case we draw our dreadnoughts or null drifters. Our opponent leads with a Flood Strand. Not really too sure during this game what we're up against, but in game 2 here we are playing against Reanimator. So I just kind of been that Misty Rainforest since we don't really need that, and I think we have like what, 5 mana. So we just play a Plains, pass a turn. Kind of almost tempted to flash in a dress down. Kind of sets up our turn for Null Drifter or Phyrexian Dreadnought. But it looks like our opponent is going to play a Brainstorm. And just kind of deciding which 3 cards to put back. And playing a Sewers here, surveilling. Best part too is they can, whichever card they put on top, they can just surveil it away. And this sets up their next turn to play Reanimate. So here we drew a timely Force of Will, which is great because most of the time as the person who likes to play control, playing with counterspells and whatnot, I always seem to draw my counterspells after their best spells resolve. But drawing the Force of Will here, pretty timely. Kind of sat here in the tank for just a minute, mainly because I was kind of contemplating of not wanting to counter this and playing a dress down in a response, which would fizzle the ETB trigger, and then we can swords it away. But we still wanted to Force of Will it just to get rid of it. Now, I can't say I play any of these matches like going forward perfectly. I think the correct line probably could have been just not countering it and just playing a dress down. But in the same turn, our opponent tries to play a Animate Dead. And thankfully enough, it resolves. They're using this to bring back Atraxa. Atraxa will just be a vanilla 7/7 creature here. Now, I wanted to play some Swords to Plowshares here. And that may have been maybe the right call here, since we could have tried to play an Ancient Tomb and cast Lorien Revealed. Problem is, though, I just didn't want to straight up lose to a Daze. With our opponent with 5 cards in hand, I just didn't want to take that chance. Here we play a Flooded Strand, which I honestly think we should have just played the Ancient Tomb instead. Having 5 mana here would have been better than 4. Opponent setting their turn for a Ponder. Looking at the top 3 cards here. I should probably be scrolling down on the game log here because I'm not sure if they actually kept on top or not. Opponent entombs. It looks like they entomb a Archon of Cruelty. Kind of sucks for us because here I just remember thinking, oh crap, we should have just played the Ancient Tomb instead, and our Ancient Tomb could have been a Flooded Strand. So here we kind of have to bank on the, if we're drawing a 5th land here, which we did, we crack the fetch land immediately, get a Tundra, and kind of just in emergency mode here, just to hard cast Lorien Revealed, C3 cards here, and fortunately not a really good 3 cards that we drew into. We've already used one of our Swords to Plowshares, so trying to see our other 3 Swords to Plowshares a little bit harder here, I would say. Don't have any dress downs or torpor orbs here, so we can't really do anything too exciting here. Opponent plays a Tameo and follows it up with a Brainstorm, which is a great combo here in Legacy, where you could just do this as early as turn 2, flip your Tamiyo, and start taking it up right away. Tamiyo is such a good card, but boy, I could see that card being banned in Legacy at some point. Opponent plays a Wasteland, and just gets rid of our Meticulous Archive. Probably wise to hit the Surveil land anyway, since my deck could possibly play Daze, and we can always return Archive just to get value. It's what makes those Surveil lands so great. So we play the Epiphany Needle, and we want to make sure we actually name the right side of the card, because I was almost afraid that I was going to name Tamiyo on the other side, and that just would have been terrible. One thing to kind of keep in mind with casting Epiphany Needle, I have seen people just play a Tamiyo, or I'm sorry, cast Epiphany Needle, name the wrong side. Things like Splinter Twin, which Epiphany Needle can't stop a Splinter Twin. You would have to Epiphany Needle the creature that it's actually attached to. It's happened a few times, especially on MTGO and on paper. So I always kind of have to make sure that people out there watching make sure just with Epiphany Needle you just name the actual card that you want to needle. So yeah, we're down a game against Reanimator. Not off to a good start, and I can't say I played that game perfectly. Here we're sideboarding in 5 cards: Grafdigger's Cage, Rest in Peace, Force Negation, obviously bringing in the Graveyard Hate. But one thing that this deck is known to play around is Graveyard Hate. Here, I don't know if this was the best way to sideboard. Since we're playing a Ghost Vacuum main board, I wanted to obviously keep that in. We're taking out a Dreadnought, which I still don't think is right, just because this is like one of our main win cons. But if we have a Dreadnought in hand and nothing to really combo it with, it just seems like it's just a dead card in our hand. So I just kind of wanted to trim that out and just bring in like these better sideboard cards like this Rest in Peace here, which I was thinking, okay, if this sticks around, we'll be able to save this Rest in Peace and be able to slow them down quite a bit. So we play a Fledgestrand, pass a turn. Our opponent leads with Swamp, Thoughtseize. Best thing about Brainstorm is if we don't use our Brainstorm here, I'm fairly certain that our opponent's going to take Rest in Peace. So we wanted to respond by casting Brainstorm and putting 2 cards back. And I think here we put a Force of Will and a Rest in Peace, but we want to make sure we put it in the correct order, because the last card you click is the card that goes on top first. So they look at her hand, they take the Torpor Orb, which makes sense. They definitely don't want to lose to a turn 2 Phyrexian Dreadnought, which could have been the case here, actually. Again, I think taking out the Dreadnought in this matchup, just a Dreadnought, was probably wrong. I'm playing this deck for the first time in a league. Can't say like my sideboard is exactly what you should mimic in real life, or just in general. So our opponent goes with another Thoughtseize, looks at her hand. We're obviously not going to pitch into force here. Take our Swords to Plowshares, which makes me kind of wonder, well, we want to be able to stop whatever maybe creature that they may have. Maybe like a Orcish Bowmasters. What is it? Why am I drawing a blank on the black Termagoyf? It's out of the Modern Horizons 3. those decks usually play them, I think, out of the sideboard. So we draw a Grafdigger's Cage, which I think is actually not really bad here because I have seen these Reanimator decks play Brazen Borrower. Because I drew the cage, that was something that I kind of kept in mind, was I wanted to be able to counter, or have two ways to, well, yeah, kind of counter their graveyard. So they play on Orcish Bowmasters. We could have forced Pitch and Force to get rid of that, but we do have a Swords of Plowshares that can answer that. We draw the Dreadnought, which I really wish we kind of had our Torpor Orb or a Dress Down at this point. So we just pass the turn here. But it goes to their turn and strikes back for two more points of damage. Plays a land and just ships it back. We draw Plains, which now we can start hard casting our Force of Wills, which is kind of important here. Even if they have a Daze, we can still. I still think hard casting Force of Will is probably the right call here. Well, maybe not against this Brainstorm, but we want to save it for something more problematic. So during these turns, I kind of wish I had. I was kind of wondering if maybe Force Pitching a Force here against this Orcish Bowmasters might have been better, since we would have answered the card itself and they wouldn't have a token. So this is probably one of those, like if someone was piloting this deck, kind of looking back at this, I kind of wish I did Force of Will this, but I can't predict what cards I draw throughout the rest of this game. So our opponent counters our Swords of Plowshares. Luckily enough, we draw another one, and I thought about countering it back. So opponent goes to attack. I don't want to cast the Swords just yet. Kind of want to wait until end of turn to possibly cast his Swords of Plowshares. Go to, so our opponent goes to main phase 2 here, casts a Ponder. 4 cards in hand. Now I finally decide to utilize the game log here. Our opponent declines to use Ponder's ability. So end of turn, we want to source this Bowmasters. Kind of waiting for a response for our opponent. Looks like this time they let it resolve. Not sure if they actually have counter magic in hand. But we drew a Dress Down here. And again, this is another spot where do we just jam the Dress Down with Phyrexian Dreadnought? And I think here I'm just playing too conservatively. Really looking at this game here, I kind of feel like I was playing too conservatively over certain things. I mean, I think my first mistake was not Force of Willing that Orcish Bowmasters, and I kind of wonder how this game would have played out. So we play an end of turn Dress Down to just set up our Dreadnought for next turn. Opponent plays a Brazen Borrower, and I think they just hard cast it. So we want to Force of Will this, since this creature will pretty much kill us in 2 turns. So we try to Force of Will back. And our opponent may have had Brazen Borrower in hand for quite some time. Yeah, so our opponent counters back with their own Force of Will, resolves their Brazen Borrower, but we do resolve our Dress Down. We draw a Brazen Borrower of our own, thankfully enough. Ooh. We draw a Null Drifter, which is actually kind of perfect here because we'll be able to draw our 2 cards here. be able to block this Brazen Borrower. Now our opponent could flash in a Orcish Bowmasters, but it won't do anything because of our dress down. Draw a mental or minor misstep, which I really do like this card a lot. I did not think I was going to actually be a big fan of this card overall in Legacy, but it has so many uses. Like, you can actually just counter things like Swords to Plowshares, Fatal Push, Brainstorm, or Ponder. Those just feel great overall, just being able to counter. You can even counter a Reanimate in this matchup too. So our opponent plays a Bitter Triumph. Yeah, this is one time I wish Minor Misstep could counter this, but fortunately it is not. Now, this was totally stupid of me. I used Brazen Borrower to Petty Theft to bounce back the Brazen Borrower, which doesn't make sense when I look at it now. I should have bounced the token. But I was also kind of thinking, well, they're killing our flyer, so we might as well bounce their flyer back to their hand. Because now they can Brazen Borrower, bounce our Dreadnought back to our hand, and now we don't have Dress Down or Torpor Orb. And this is where our Dreadnought is just kind of a dead card until we can draw something otherwise. So our opponent gets in with an attack, plays their Brazen Borrower, passes turn. We draw a Null Drifter. Fortunately, we're kind of having to just evoke it. We're just kind of curious on like how we want to tap here. I think we just have to kind of go for it. But it looks like I actually just end up just passing the turn, which I'm not really too sure why. Oh yeah, because I have this Brazen Borrower in exile, so we can use this Brazen Borrower to block the other Brazen Borrower. Still not in a good spot. Our opponent has 2 cards in hand. This Ancient Tomb dealing some damage to us. Also being at 2 life, we're effectively kind of stone rained twice. So we Brainstorm here, draw 3 cards. And seeing more Ancient Tombs. Seeing just pretty much 3 dead draws here. Would have loved to have seen at least a fetch land just to put those away. Play the Null Drifter just so we can just draw those 2 cards. Excuse me. Again, I don't play a whole lot of Legacy, so kind of venturing out to this format is something that I always find intriguing. This format, especially like when you have things like Brainstorm, Fetch, like sequencing your Brainstorms, Ponders, it's definitely requires a lot more thought than formats that I usually play, like Standard or Modern. Definitely a lot more skill intensive, I will say. But again, I do apologize for a lot of my misplays here. I know whoever's just kind of watching this is probably thinking, oh, you could have done this, you could have done that. Feel free to leave it in the comments. Definitely let me know what I should have done. Maybe it's something I missed out on. But yeah, our opponent just gets us with Orcish Bowmasters. We just died to that. So we're just going to go to game 3, and we actually started round 3 right off the bat. So, yeah. Kind of, I would say I was a little bit kind of tilted with that Reanimator matchup. Felt like I obviously did not play perfect. Could have sequenced a little bit better. I don't know, the Brazen Borrower on the Brazen Borrower itself was also kind of bad. But yeah, at this point, I'm kind of already over it. And we have an incredible hand that just kind of makes up for our last round. So we play a turn 1 Torpor Orb, hoping that it resolves. Unfortunately, our opponent just has the force of will here. Lucky them. Opponent leads with a artifact Izzet land, which Here I'm thinking, I have no idea what I'm up against. This looks like kind of a spicy build here. Not sure if our opponent was going to play a turn 1 Emery, which would not surprise me here. But they did not. Excuse me. So drawing that stock up was actually perfect, because I was almost thinking if we were going to have to just hardcast a Null Drifter. So we see 5 cards here. And again, I'm kind of unfamiliar with this, kind of getting back to Legacy a few months later. The last deck I was actually playing was Nought Breakfast, which I actually, surprisingly enough, kind of enjoyed. I can't imagine playing it here on MTGO, just because of the clicks with Nadu and No Man Courier. But yeah, I was kind of contemplating on these 5 cards here, and I wanted to kind of play it safe and just get a Force of Will with a blue card. But yeah, just getting back into this format. I know this format requires a lot of help right now, just with Oops All Spells and Reanimator being some of the top decks. Yeah, I definitely need some love right now for sure, but past that, I still think Legacy is a fun format to play, and I always have the highest respect for this. So we find out that our opponent is playing Silicon Synthesizer, which I have played before, and that card resolving would have just probably destroyed us. So getting that Force of Will with a blue card really mattered a lot. So thank you, Sokka, for being there right on time. We draw our other Sokka, which is perfect. We ended the turn here with a Ghost Vacuum. Not sure if our opponent is playing any kind of graveyard hate. I was kind of suspecting that our opponent could be playing Emery, and if they are, we wanted to start hitting things like artifacts. So I wanted to start with the Silicrum, just so they can't get that back. Draw our Brainstorm. We set up the turn with another stock up. God, I love this card. It just feels like if you resolve one, it just feels like you're just winning the game. So we see another stock up, which I am just like intrigued by. So I pick up another one with Null Drifter, just kind of hoping that we draw another Dress Down or Torpor Orb, just to make these Null Drifters just insanely powerful. Yeah, turns out a 3 mana 4/4 with Annihilator 1 with Lion. It's pretty good. Very, very wordy, like most Magic cards these days. So we exile our Null Drifter from our graveyard, just because with the last effect on Ghost Vacuum, you can pay 6 and put each creature that's exiled this way onto the battlefield. They're 1/1 with Lion. Still has all abilities, so they would still keep this Annihilator 1. So just a 1/1 flyer with Annihilator just kind of ends up being pretty funny here. So we could have played a land and just kind of gone for it, but we, again, want to just set up our turns where if we draw a Torpor Orb, which we did, along with a Dreadnought, we just want to be able to just kind of go explosive here. I might have been overthinking this just with our 2 cards. We do have our Force of Will, so we want to kind of make sure we do keep a blue card in hand. And here, I can't really remember what I put back. I think I put back, I put back Brainstorm and another Null Drifter. And because of this turn, I have to play Torpor Orb, and then if I want to play another Null Drifter, I have to fetch away those 2 cards. Now, I don't like having to use Force of Will pitching stock up if we have to, but it is what it is. If we have to counterspell like a Synthesizer or whatnot. So we go for a Torpor Orb. Thankfully it resolves. Null Drifter, and with the trigger on the stack, it's a cast trigger, so even if they try to Force of Will, we still draw our 2 cards, but they can counter our Null Drifter and just not leave us with a 4/4. Luckily these 2 cards both resolve. Feeling pretty confident about this game so far. course, our opponent playing a Urza Saga, that can kind of get out of control pretty quick here. 2 cards in hand, our opponent just ships it back after playing the Urza Saga. So we go Ghost Vacuum here, and we just want to exile that Lotus Petal. Again, I was just trying to play around Emery. Pardon me, I ate something earlier and I probably should have had some water before doing this recording. So we send in an attack with Null Drifter. Annihilator resolves, and they sacrifice their Soul Guide Lantern, which makes sense. Probably not getting much use out of it since we don't really use the graveyard as much. Yeah, we play our Dreadnought, and our opponent kind of sees the writing on the wall. 2 cards in hand, it feels like they just kind of had deck cards, so we just go into sideboard here. And right away, I just want to bring in this Wrath of the Skies. Seems like the best card against them. This Conqueror is also another card I want to bring in since it stops all their artifacts, including their artifact lands. Prismatic Ending just to deal with like some of their cheap artifacts or Urza Sagas. So we're bringing in these 5 cards. Take out a Ghost Vacuum since I'm kind of starting to think if we actually need this card. Didn't really see an Emery. Kind of felt like it was just kind of worth just sideboarding out. I was kind of contemplating on Consign to Memory, but I think I don't bring that in because Consign doesn't counter Synthesizer. Also, yeah, we take out the Piffy Needle. I was kind of starting to not see any use for that, along with a Mental Misstep. Take out 2 stock ups since we're on the draw here, and it's a little bit expensive, even though we had like 3 stock ups, and I think that's really what won us the game. I still think because we're on the play here, or I'm sorry, on the draw, it just seems a little bit slow. We still have a lot of card draw, so I was kind of feeling kind of confident that we could probably take out stock ups. And since we're bringing in Conqueror, since they're at the same mana cost, felt like Conqueror was going to do more than actual stock up. So we mulligan, take a look at this hand. Kind of banking on this Ponder to kind of get us somewhere. Not the best kind of hand, but we're kind of hoping that it pays off pretty well. So opponent leaves with a Scene of Xenon, does nothing. Draw another land, which that was actually really good. So we got a turn 1 Ponder. Look at 3 cards here. We see Force of Will, Null Drifter, and Urza Saga. Now the best part of playing Urza Saga in this deck, which might seem kind of a bit of a nombo when we're playing Dresstone here, Urza Saga is actually great for getting things like Piffy Needle, Ghost Vacuum, but most importantly Dreadnought, especially if we have a Torpor Orb or Dresstone in the deck. But yeah, having Urza Saga is just there mainly just to get these cards. But because we took out Piffy Needle and Ghost Vacuum, the only card we can really get is Phyrexian Dreadnought. So we keep the hand, we keep the Force of Will on top, so we don't shuffle. And I believe the next card we draw is an Urza Saga, followed by a Null Drifter, since we're not going to be able to cast Null Drifter on turn 2. Opponent plays a turn 2 Chalice of the Void for 1. Now, stupid me, this is where I kind of made my misplay already. We draw our Urza Saga, but not realizing it, I could have just gotten rid of that that Chalice of the Void, mainly because we are spending 2 mana to cast Chalice or 2 mana on Prismatic Ending. But because it's on the stack, we're paying 2 mana and not 1 mana. And I was kind of dumb here for just playing Flooded Strand when I could have just played the Urza Saga and just got rid of that Chalice of the Void. So that one was a for sure, like, oops, I should have known better. But for some reason my mind was thinking like, oh, I draw this Urza Saga and this Prismatic Ending is only going to hit it for 1. We still could have played the Flooded Strand and cracked it to still exile it, but playing the Urza Saga would have been better. So that was pretty silly of me, and I think that set me back quite a bit actually here. I mean, we can't cast our Swords to Plowshares, but our Swords to Plowshares kind of becomes pretty important here since we do have these Urza Sagas that we'll have to deal with eventually. So we cast a Null Drifter. Again, our opponent can try to force a will this, but they can't counter the triggered ability. But they do have a Consigned Memory to counter our counter the ability and the spell itself. And our opponent does it for 3, which is actually smart on them. Because if they did it for 1, they can counter the spell and the ability, but we can use Force of Will to counter whichever one feels important to us. So yeah, our opponent pretty much time walks us there. But this also didn't allow them to activate a construct token on our turn. So here our opponent's contemplating if they want to just make a construct token. Looks like they're kind of committed to making the construct. Currently a 2/2. And it looks like they get a Mox Opal, which is nice here because losing a land to accelerate, still be at the same amount of mana here. Yeah, they play a Mox Opal with a Scene of the Synod. Oh, I guess this construct token is actually a 5/5. Gotta count the artifact lands. I'm playing a Thoughtcast, which is perfect here. Yeah, and here I think now I see that I have to use Prismatic Ending to get rid of this Chalice of the Void. And I'm really dumb here because I think I realized after I did this, I was like, oh yeah, I could have used my Urza Saga to get rid of that Chalice of the Void in addition to spending the mana. Really dumb of me here too, because I could have used Prismatic Ending and used what was it, Swords to Plowshares on the same turn. Yeah, we want to get rid of that Chalice of the Void since it's kind of hurt our hand, and drawing things like Swords to Plowshares are going to be just dead draws. Now, we could have let that resolve and play a Prismatic Ending for a later turn, but we wanted to just kind of fight that. Not knowing this, of course, I kind of realized, oh, I kind of fall under a synthesizer. But this is a new card, Pinnacle Emissary. This is a card I have not seen yet. In fact, this is a card I just kind of totally missed during spoilers. This is a fantastic card because like you can warp it for blue or red, and then at the end of turn you exile it and you can cast it for a later turn. But for 1 mana, it's insane because in Legacy you can play all these like free spells like Mox Opal. Yeah, you can play all these like Chalice of the Voids, anything kind of free. I think it's when you cast a artifact spell. So if an artifact enters the battlefield with like Urza Saga, it doesn't trigger it, but it's a really good card. So that card is going to get exiled. They'll have to spend 3 mana to actually cast it. We go to our turn, we tap this for mana, and we can only play, we can only get Phyrexian Dreadnought. Now, luckily for Urza Saga, it doesn't force us to actually get a card from our deck. So our opponent responds to the triggered ability with Consigned Memory, which I think is fine. I was actually totally satisfied with this. I was like, oh cool, because the only card we can get here is Phyrexian Dreadnought. With the colors floating, I end up using this to exile, I think, the construct token. And then we have Prismatic Ending to exile one of these permanents here. kind of think it should have been the Shadow Sphere, but I wanted to hit the Mox Opal just to kind of keep my opponent off of mana here. I don't think it really matters since they have 3 mana in play. But because I saw that Warp card, I just wanted to make them like cast their creature, which they do here. But then they would have to follow it up with another artifact or maybe for another turn. Well, this card gives you so much value, it's insane. So we draw an Ancient Tomb. Surprisingly enough, it's actually not a bad draw here since we can actually play Null Drifter and Swords of Plowshares. Now, I kind of wish we could play this Torpor Orb, but fortunately can't, so we'll have to wait on another turn to cast that. Yeah, our Ancient Tomb kind of becomes a liability here just because our opponent can just equip this and then just attack for 2. Yeah, our opponent plays another Chalice of the Void on 1, so we can't cast our Dreadnoughts and unfortunately our Brainstorm. So we play our Torpor Orb. At least we can play that, and if we find a way to get rid of this Chalice of the Void, then we can get rid of that and then also play Dreadnought. But I think our opponent's just going to take over this game. They're even tapping these artifacts, which I can't remember what it was that they were trying to cast here. Oh yeah, Kappa Cannoneer, that's right. I was thinking like Word of Invention at first, and I was like, wait, that seems like a weird card to play in Legacy. I should obviously know Kappa Cannoneer. It's a good card, by all means. Yeah, we see the writing on the wall there, and we just go into game 3. Here I wanted to bring back in Mental Misstep since we're on the play. That's what it looks like I'm actually planning on doing here. And we could bring in like Stock Up since we're on the play. I was kind of thinking what makes sense to just like take out for this Mental Misstep. And I kind of figured like maybe just take it out of Ponder. I mean, we already have like 4 Brainstorms and a Ponder, so just wanted to just keep an A Mental Misstep. I don't know if it was actually right to do since I don't know what we're really Mental Misstepping other than artifacts and what is it, Slow Guide Lantern. Not a lot of cards that I would think would be worth using that card on. So might have just made more sense just to keep the second Ponder in. We look at this hand, we have 2 Torpor Orbs and 4 lands with a Brainstorm. The hand is just a combo away from being able to cast a Phyrexian Dreadnought, so yeah, we keep the hand, we're on the play, so I'm feeling okay with this hand. Opponent plays an artifact, tap land. No aggressive start here, thankfully enough. Wanted to just say this is like, is it Infinity? So we Surveil, keep a Swords of Plowshares on top. Play our Torpor Orb. Kind of hoping that this does get Force of Will here. Does not. Now we're just kind of hoping that we draw a Phyrexian Dreadnought, or quite honestly, I would rather see a Null Drifter. Opponent playing a Volcanic Island, followed by a Lotus Petal. So now they have 3 mana. We're pretty much at 16 here. Just kind of passing the turn since we don't have a Force of Will. Also kind of just wanted to bluff that we don't have one. Play a Fledistran. We draw a Brainstorm. So we're most likely to just cast this Brainstorm end of their turn. Kind of wish we would have played it on this turn just to kind of see if we would have set up a turn for what is it? Phyrexian Dreadnought. Thankfully we didn't go for that line because our opponent had a end of turn Braid. Oh, I'm sorry, a Braid. So our opponent playing an Emissary here. I think we just respond with a Brainstorm here. And we're drawing a lot of Brainstorms this game. So we have to put 2 cards back, but I'm trying to figure out like which 2 cards make sense to put back. We don't have to shuffle these away if we don't have to, but oh, I saw an island and something else. I can't remember. I don't know what the other card was. I apologize for that. So the emissary resolves. They play a Chalice of the Void for just 0. Or I'm sorry, for 1. So we want to respond with a Source of Plowshares, getting rid of that. They do get the 1/1 token. Now keep in mind these tokens can only block creatures with flying. So we draw an island, which is one of the cards that we kept on top, if I remember correctly, and just pass the turn. Now I was thinking with this turn, it's like, okay, end of turn, I want to Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, put 2 cards back, shuffle it away. But I almost, thankfully enough, I caught on to that right away because I was like, oh wait, there's a Chalice on 1, so that would not be the correct play there. Instead, we crack the fetch land here. We get a basic Plains. I feel like it would just make sense just to get a Tundra here, since this deck is not really playing any Wasteland and we didn't see any game in any of the previous games. So we use Petty Theft to bounce the Chalice of the Void, and we draw our Tundra. So now we set up our turn for Null Drifter. If they play another Abrade, it is what it is. Sure, we lose our 4/4, but we still draw 2 cards here. Again, our opponent can also play a Consign to Memory, counter the spell and the ability, which also kind of sucks for us too. But we're just kind of hoping that our opponent just does not have the Consign to Memory, which sadly they do. They have Consign and they're replicating it once. For some reason, I was kind of a little confused here because I feel like I should know that I've played Consign to Memory many times. I was thinking for just that quick second, I was like, oh, unless I counter unless they pay 1. So I was like, well, wait, I can pay it, but it just straight up counters the ability or spell. So we, since our Null Drifter didn't resolve, we play our Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, put 2 back. Now we could have kept the Phyrexian Dreadnought and started to get a little bit aggressive here, but because we drew the Wrathless guys, and based off of what our opponent has in play, kind of felt like it made more sense to just play the Wrathless guys. Though, I still think it would have made more sense to just play a Phyrexian Dreadnought, because so far our opponent is representing mana cost 0. Like here they cast a Mox Obol, which Wrathless guys can kill for 0. Same thing with Chalice of the Void for 1. On the stack it's whatever its mana cost is, but in play it's a 0 converted to 0 mana cost card. So this is an excellent turn here. I am looking at the board state and thinking, oh wow, everything that's in play, I can just destroy everything of 0 or less. So we actually get to keep our Torpor Orb, which is awesome here. This will also get rid of the Urza Saga. They can make a construct in response, but that construct will also get destroyed too. We're just kind of hoping our opponent, with the 2 cards in hand, they don't have a Force of Will with blue card pitch. Looks like they're floating the mana in response. Smarter of our opponent to do that. We could cast our Dress Down here, but we want to go to the next phase. So our opponent, using 2 of the mana, they destroy our Abrade, which would seem kind of unfortunate here, but because of our top card being a Phyrexian Dreadnought, we want to use this Dress Down now to draw into that Phyrexian Dreadnought and cast it, which we end up doing. Now our opponent's just on a turn 2 clock. Feeling pretty good. course, we are hellbent. Our opponent can definitely recover from this game if they draw the right kind of cards. Luckily enough, they just play a land and play Boots here, which can give their creature +1 and haste and ward 1. We draw our Force of Will, which I think should seal the deal here. If they try to play whatever card, we can just counter it. But we end up winning that and going straight to the next game. So we are currently 2-1, and now we're playing round 4. And we keep. It looks like we're looking at this hand, and what is it here? We are on the play again. And I do like this hand, just because we can play a turn 2 stock up. And I do like the fact that this deck plays with like 2-card combos, which is something I'm always a big fan of. That's why like my favorite 2-card combo has always been Splinter Twin with Deceiver Shark. Now in this game, a dress down with Dreadnought or Null Dredger is just also another nice dynamic duo. Not something that instantly wins you the game, but something I am definitely a big fan of. So we play an Ancient Tomb, pass a turn. Our opponent plays a turn 1 Underground Sea with Thoughtseize here. I'm kind of thinking, well, we're probably playing against another Reanimator deck while I was playing this game, but in this round 4, we are up against Sultai Beans. I think in this recording I'll also kind of show, like in the beginning of each of these rounds, what matchups I'm playing, so that way it kind of gives you a heads up. But everything that I'm providing commentary here for is just kind of reviewing this gameplay, just kind of going back and watching some of this footage and just kind of thinking what I could have done better. I'm also recording this video too. One of the biggest reasons why I'm recording this is, 1, it's Legacy, and 2, there is a Team Trios Legacy event that I am attending this Sunday, and I will be playing the Legacy portion, which is why I am posting up this video, and going to be playing this deck in the Team Trios. The other 2 formats is Vintage and Modern. One of my buddies is going to be piloting Vintage. I don't know exactly which one. I think some kind of interesting, like, Echo of Eons kind of brew, which my buddy is a big fan of. Shout out to him with that. And then my buddy in the Modern seat is playing Domain Zoo, last I checked. So looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I always love these Team Trio events. I think it, regardless on how we do, I always have a great time with just Team Trios in general. So, kind of going back to the game, I won't kind of talk too much about it, but I can kind of bring it up later on or in bits and pieces here. But definitely looking forward to that Team Trios event and kind of seeing how that goes after that. But yeah, so during this game, it looks like our opponent has been kind of not strip mining, but wastelanding us. Still unsure on what our opponent might be up against, like what we are up against, but my guess, I was kind of thinking, well, there's this Tamiyo Spellbound main board. They definitely don't like playing against Reanimator, I'm guessing. So I don't know if this was like maybe Reanimator splashing green for something. I think I also I noticed right as soon as they cracked this 3rd land, yeah, they played Bargain here, which made me think right away, oh yeah, this is Sultai Beans, which is, Bargain's also really good too, because on the stack it's a 6 mana cost card. So if you have up the Beanstalk in play, you draw a card when you cast a spell. And then in addition to that, you look at the top 4 cards, put 2 of them into your hand, 2 of them into your graveyard. This is kind of like the other version of Stock Up, but it's at instant speed. I think in this build it's a lot better, because for reasons like this, Murktide comes into play. You also put 2 cards into your graveyard to kind of fuel this Murktide. Here I'm kind of scared of that, so I want to actually counter counter it. We could let it resolve and just try to Sword Splasher it instead. Opponent's going to fight back with a Force of Will, pitching a Ponder, it looks like. And here I don't want to cast Sword Splashers just yet. I'm a little concerned because our opponent has 3 cards in hand. I want to see if we can draw into a Force of Will here. Fortunately we don't, so I wanted to just kind of fire it off right then and there. Also didn't want to take the chance of our opponent maybe top decking a Force of Will there. And also thinking that what are the chances that our opponent has back-to-back Force of Will? Though this opponent was drawing gas this game too. Wither Bloom command, love that card too. Looks like they're milling 3 cards, getting a land back. If they get a Wasteland, makes sense because they can just return any land that's in their graveyard, not amongst the cards that are milled, but whatever's in their graveyard. And they just drain us for 2 and they gain 2. Druid Timely stock up. Kind of hoping that this resolves here. Opponent flashes in a Bowmasters, which I kind of thought was a little bit strange, but come to think about it, we only have 1 card in hand, so our opponent wanted to respond to this, which makes sense, and it's kind of smart for our opponent. They didn't want to let us see 2 cards, and one of them being a Force of Will blue card. So, yeah, I was kind of thinking our opponent was trying to respond to stock up, thinking that it allows us to draw 2 cards, but it really sees 2 cards and not triggers the Bowmasters multiple times. But looking at this recording now, I think it was just in response to the 1 card that we had in hand. So kind of similar to our Reanimator matchup, our opponent has a Bowmaster with a token, so we'll have to eventually answer this Bowmaster. Here, I think we're kind of doing something similar to wanting to cast the Sword Splashers on this Bowmaster, but I'm not sure if it seems like it's necessary. Our opponent has 2 cards, so they could have a Force of Will with blue card, and that can be unfortunate for us. But if they try to use a Force of Will on our Sword Splashers, then they have no cards in hand. However, well, actually, I'm sorry. They'll have 2 cards again because of this bargain. So it looks like they put a Pluto Delta and Force of Will into their graveyard, which I was a little surprised to see that. Geotorp Orb, which works pretty well with our Dreadnought here, if you have not noticed that yet. Our opponent plays another Bowmasters, but here it definitely makes sense because if Orb resolves and then they play a Bowmaster, then they don't get the ETB trigger. They'll ping us for 1. They don't get a new token since they already have a token in place, so they amass and make their 1/1 creature now a 2/2. Now we're facing 4 points of power. Our opponent is now hardcasting a Lorien Revealed, which that's a great card all around. You can use it to cycle for an island. In the late game, you can just cast it for 5 and just draw 3 cards. Ooh, I thought that card would definitely be Legacy playable. I mean, we're playing one up as well too, so can't disrespect our opponent for playing it too. Play Fledged Strand. I'm okay with seeing a land here. And we could attack, put our opponent down to 11, assuming that they don't block. I mean, our Dreadnought has Trample, so blocking kind of makes no sense unless they want to kind of change the map. We could attack, but then our opponent can attack for 4, but we can try to attack again, but then they can, I think they can have enough blockers to kind of absorb a certain amount of damage to where we don't, where they don't die. kind of unsure if we could have just attacked, especially since we have the Sword Splashers. We could have just used our own Sword Splashers on our own Dreadnought to gain 12 life if we were that concerned. So, I don't know if we should have attacked last turn. Now, watching this gameplay footage, probably makes sense that we should have attacked. But given the moment, I think we could. I think maybe attacking may have seemed wise because we could have tried to kill them in 2 turns possibly. And Sword Splashers can also get rid of whatever creature. I guess they would gain the life, then lose the life since Dreadnought has Trample here. So our opponent has an Up the Beanstalk, and then they end up casting a Murktide Region here, which gives them value with their ability to draw a card. So now I'm kind of scared of that. We definitely can't attack with this Dreadnought now. Now I may probably just take back what I was just saying earlier, where we should have attacked. But if our opponent attacked, we would be at 4 life here. And then we're kind of having to answer this Murktide Regent. But it's definitely getting mana flooded over there. They can just hardcast a Murktide Regent if they have to. So they attack. We could just flash in this Dress Down, which it's kind of funny if you think about it, because instead of using Sword Splashers, we could use Dress Down. It becomes an 8/8 with no abilities, so our 12/12 can block the 8/8. So our opponent plays another Bargain. They draw a card, we let the ability resolve. They have 4 cards in hand. Allowing this to resolve, now they have 6. Looks like our opponent found the Force of Will here, so here we're going to get a Tundra. We're going to respond by casting a Dress Down before they draw the card with Up the Beanstalk in case they draw another Force of Will. Opponent flashing or spending 2 mana here. Playing a Shield Raise the Edict, which that definitely got us good. And unfortunately, we have no blockers. Our opponent attacks us for lethal damage, and we just die there. So off to game 2. Now here, I'm not entirely sure what seems wise to bring in. I think bringing in Hull Breacher, it was like my first auto right out of the board, just because they have a lot of card draw. Up the Beanstalk basically stops it. Thinking about Rest in Peace here, just because they can stop the Murktide Region from, or just having to delve with it. But I honestly wasn't really too sure. I think I opted out to not bring them in just because we have things like Ghost Vacuum. Take out a Mental Misstep, which I think is wrong on my end, because we can counter Brainstorm, Ponder, and Fatal Push. And I think Fatal Push is a card that can hurt us quite a bit when we have Phyrexian Dreadnoughts that cost only 1 mana. So we're thinking about what to kind of take out, because I think we're just bringing in this Hull Breacher. I also want to bring in Harbinger of the Seas, just because we saw a lot of non-basics. And I felt like, well, if we resolve this Harbinger or Harbinger, then they can only cast blue spells. So, not sure if that's good here or not, but we wanted to try it out. So we draw our 7. I believe we keep this hand, and we lead with an Ancient Tomb. Passing the turn back to our opponent. Opponent playing a basic Swamp, which is unfortunate here, because if we draw our Heartbringer, they can now cast black spells with just that basic Swamp. But if we draw it, then they can't cast any green spells, so like things like Up the Beanstalk and Bargain are cards that they can't exactly cast. So the Thought Season play, or I'm sorry, being cast. I'm just kind of thinking of what to take here. Looks like they wanted to take the Null Drifter, which I think makes sense. Now we could have done a dress down into Dreadnought, which I didn't really think about here. And that probably should have been the play to begin with. Me being like a control fanatic, I just feel like, oh, I need a card draw. I can only imagine what would have happened in this game had we probably just done the dress down and Phyrexian Dreadnought. Again, I wasn't really thinking about it. I mean, we do have 3 mana to be able to play both. But I guess if we were playing dress down into Dreadnought, our opponent could probably just Fatal Push. I think that's probably why they decided to take our Null Drifter instead. Opponent fetching a basic island, casting a Ponder. Get a little concerned here because I don't know if they're also playing Harbinger as well too. But I don't think I'm like too concerned about it because if either one resolves from either side, our Ancient Tombs actually become just islands and kind of helps us out quite a bit because taking 2 damage from these Ancient Tombs over the course of the game can really kind of cost us. So we draw our Brainstorm, kind of thinking here for a minute on what to kind of do here. Yeah, I really wish we just would have just done dress down into Dreadnought game 2, or what was it, turn 2. So again, I kind of apologize for this misplay. I think for people who probably play this deck, definitely for those who have more experience with the deck, I would imagine that like that is something that you would want to do on turn 2. Because here, if we attack and our opponent has no ways to answer the Dreadnought, our opponent would be down at 5. And if they have no answers again, we could probably just win on turn 4. I think I was just too set on this Harbinger so much. Like, even talking about it right now, it just feels like, oh man, this is just the card that I want to be able to cast. And yeah, I just feel like this game, it feels like I'm ignoring the whole combo or the whole point of this deck. Yeah, because here I just play a land and just pass. And again, even right now, just providing this commentary, it just feels like it's so frustrating even for me to be like, oh, this, like, my opponent could have just been dead on turn 4 possibly. But but that's just assuming that they don't have like a Fatal Push or a Shieldred Edict. I still think playing turn 2 just for them to have it is what you really want them to do. So our opponent plays a Borrow Goyf, which is what I was kind of struggling on at first of the Black Goyf that I was referring to earlier. And this Goyf is pretty big. Because we have land sorcery, because it's only their graveyard. Or I guess it's not really big. It's just a 2/3 creature. Or no, I'm sorry, it counts for all graveyard stuff. So now I realize after turn 5, hey, we should go for the dress down Dreadnought combo now. So we crack the Fledged Strand. I want to get a basic island here just to play around Wasteland. And now we play Harbinger. But for our opponent with 5 cards in hand, I would not be surprised if they actually end up force will in this, but they don't. This kind of gives us a good turn to play these 2 cards now, because with the dress down being gone, that Wasteland won't be able to. I mean, that Wasteland will be able to tap for Island. Now that is something that I need to kind of keep in mind here. They can use that Wasteland to get rid of, or to cast a Murktide Regent. Opponent destroying Dress Down and Phyrexian Dreadnought, since they have at least up to 2 targets, so they might as well. Yeah, our Bargoyf is now a 6/7, brings us down from 11 to 5. And I believe they take an Orcish Bowmasters out of this pile. Once again, I'm using the game log just to get an idea of what they're getting. Yeah, so they get Bowmaster and lead with a Thoughtseize, which at this point I'm just like, ugh, this Thoughtseize. I can never seem to take a break from this card. I'm also kind of guilty for playing Thoughtseize myself too. In other decks that I've played, at least. So our opponent plays a Murktide Regent thanks to our season play, and our their Wasteland tapping for an island. Thankfully enough, we use a Ponder CS Swords to Plowshares. Sadly, the Swords to Plowshares is only going to be able to hit this region, so we have to use Swords to Plowshares on the region here. We want to do it now just so they don't get any value off of it. Our opponent does know that we have Dress Down in play, so they can play around this. Because if they were to attack, we can play this Dress Down in response, and then their Bargoyf would only be a 0/1. However, with season play, they could cast all their cards, or sorry, they would also lose the ability on C. So opponent playing a Polluted Delta, it just passes a turn. Again, they know our Dress Down in hand. Play another island. And we play our stock up here. Again, our Ancient Doom's not tapping for actual mana. Again, I was kind of thinking like our opponent's responding to this with Orcish Bowmasters with us casting stock up. So we see 5 cards here, and we can take this Dreadnought to be able to counter this Bargoyf. One thing too about Dress Down is like they lose all abilities, so even the Death Touch and Lifelink, it's also counters it too. And here I think I'm just playing too cautiously. This is one of those games where I think I just played way too cautiously. And we could have probably tried to win as early as turn 2. Well, we don't automatically win on turn 2, but just trying to go for our combo at least would have made the most sense. Opponent playing a Brainstorm. You're going to see 3 cards and put 2 cards back on top. I'm a little bit kind of worried about how this matchup is going, because I'm not sure if I should have played the Dress Down and Dreadnought on that same turn, just so we have an extra blocker. Yeah, because our opponent has 2 cards in hand, and they're tapping 2 mana to play a Shieldred Edict. Here we have to force a will, pitching this Brainstorm, which I don't like having to do. We could have probably played our Brainstorm in response and see if we would have pitched a different blue card over that. So seeing that, that's also another misplay. But yeah, Legacy is just a hard format. I definitely make the most mistakes in this format than any other format. I would say I master pretty well in formats like Modern and Standard, where the play patterns are a little bit easier to kind of navigate. But Legacy, it's also another format that I just don't play enough to understand. Like, feel like I don't understand everything of the format, but it is definitely a highly complex format that I just never know if I'm playing right or not. But yeah, this one was a big mistake. We hardcast Force of Will and realized, oh crap, we're a mana shy. We can't dress down. Our opponent just attacks with everything, and we just concede right away. So yeah, we concede and just want to start the next round. So yeah, unfortunately we're 2-2 here, and we're hoping to go 3-2 here. If we lose, then we go 2-3, but we're hoping to go at least 3-2 here to at least get our entries back. So stay tuned for pretty much the next round here. So we're here with round 5. I believe we are once again on the play. I think we have won the dice roll. Like, what is it? We're 5-0. So, I can't remember. If we're 5-0 in this league with dice rolls, then hey, where's our trophy for that? So we keep this hand. We just want to play it safe since we have double Force of Will in case we're playing against Storm. Our opponent playing an Ancient Tomb with Lotus Petal and Grim Monolith. Kind of glad we actually have this back-to-back Force of Will. So we end of turn, crack this land, get an Archive, and we keep this Brainstorm on top since it's one of our better draws here. Play a land. We could play the Torpor, but we don't have a way to really properly set it up for next turn unless we draw like a Phyrexian Dreadnought. So I'm kind of unsure on what to kind of do here. I think we just pass here because I think we just wanted to go end of turn, Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, put 2 cards back on top, and potentially shuffle them away. Opponent playing a 1 ring here, which we absolutely have to counter. Played this card enough in Modern to know that this card was a nuisance and why it got banned for a really good reason. I feel like that card's still pretty good here in Legacy. Yeah, and this is where I'm really glad where we have the double Force of Will here, because we are for sure Force of Will in this too. Now we're just kind of deciding on which 2 cards to put back. We definitely want to put back the Sword Splash here, since it's not going to do a whole lot here other than get rid of a Flesh Breaker or a versus Saga tokens. So we Force of Will here, pitching a Dress Down since we have the Torpor Orb. Or at least I think that's what we're doing here. Yeah, never mind. We get rid of the stock up, which I don't think was really the right play there. But then again, I guess we put 2 non-land cards back on top, so we would have to hope that we're drawing a 3rd land. Well, this is nice here because now we have drawn a Phyrexian Dreadnought. So if our opponent doesn't do anything this turn, then we can just flash in this Dress Down and play Dreadnought the next turn. I think on our last turn we should have played a Torpor, because seeing this Null Drifter, again, being kind of fairly new to the deck, I think playing Torpor Orb makes the most sense because it's always going to stay in play, and for future cards like Null Drifter, it will allow us to have a 4/4, because I think here we could have just been able to play our Null Drifter and just start beating down. So I think we're pretty much a turn behind. I think I just got a little bit greedy with wanting to draw an extra card with Dress Down and then play Phyrexian Dreadnought. So our opponent using their mana to untap their Grim Monolith. They have a lot of mana here, but looks like they have no answer to the Dreadnought, so we didn't get punished thankfully enough. So we go to our game 2 and quickly sideboard here. I have playtested Mystic Forge. I think it's a powerful deck by all means. But on my side of things, I feel like it struggles against a lot of these blue matchups where Force of Will is just a card that keeps this in check. I think if we didn't have double Force of Will there, we were for sure going to lose. And I think there's a reason why Force of Will is a card that has to exist in Legacy always. I think if they ever got banned in Legacy, I think it would just be terrible. Or I think the format would just be absolutely terrible. But yeah, we take out those cards, bring in some cards in. Conqueror is also a good card here. Heartbringer, just to slow down their mana sources. Consign a Memory, Force of Negation. We have a lot of great cards to bring in, and I think our sideboard for this is kind of easy, since we kind of have been on the other side of this deck before. So we keep this hand. I actually like this hand for multiple reasons. We have a turn 1 Needle that we can just easily name with the Ring. And here I think this definitely gives us a reason to actually just go Epiphany Needle and name in the One Ring. Drew a Wrath of the Skies, which not a bad card considering, but it might be a little bit of a nombo with this Wrath of the Skies here. But I think remembering how this game kind of plays out, there's kind of this card actually ends up being kind of important later on. I guess, spoiler alert. But opponent tapping 4 mana. So they're already down to 13 life already just on turn 2. Now they're playing a spicy card here. They're playing the new Tezzeret, which I am not surprised to see this card. In fact, I was just play testing this deck not too long ago, not even realizing, oh yeah, Edge of Eternity is out right now. Could have been playing with that. This allows us to get like Voltaic Key or Manifold Mox Obol. Turns out that Trinket Mage with an upside is pretty good. So we play our Torpor Orb. Just wanted to set up our next turn for Dreadnought. Could also spend 3 mana to play Harbinger. Oh my god, I cannot talk. Of course, I've been doing this recording for well over an hour and a half at this point. Luckily enough, this is the final round. Opponent playing a Mystic Forge, already down to 8. So, yeah, that life total is getting awfully low there, big guy. Well, that's actually not assume that our opponent's a big guy here. Opponent just cashes in the Tezzeret here, and I think they get a Lotus Petal out of the reveal card. Makes sense though, because they can use that mana to get a Portable Hole here, which I think that's what they got earlier. Don't think about it. But here, this is okay. So this is where the spoiler comes into play. The Wrath of the Skies. So Wrath of the Skies for 1 looks beautiful here. They're pretty much tapped out. So using Wrath of the Skies here to destroy both the keys and Portable Hole will help us out tremendously. Luckily enough, this deck does not play any counterspell magic. They could play Pact of Negation, but I would be very surprised. So yeah, Wrath of the Skies for 1, and it's perfect here too, because we don't lose our Torpor Orb, because it's a 2 mana value. Now, with our logo kind of blocking the way, we do pay the 1, but it is shown here with it on the stack. But yeah, we pretty much destroy all their non-land permanents except for their One Ring and Mystic Forge. Now, they could easily get back out of this with Mystic Forge, but with them losing life with just the Ring, and if they want to tap this Mystic Forge to exile the top card, they're also going to have to pay an additional with that. These Ancient Tombs are effectively are out of the game right now, so they have just 2 mana open. I guess they could use one of their Ancient Tombs, but then they would be at 2 life. and then on the following turn they would just lose to their One Ring. Now if they draw another One Ring here, then I could see just using that Ancient Tomb to play a new ring, reset it, and not like actually tap it. So opponent thinking here, it looks like they spend the 2 mana for a Grim Monolith. And then they just ship back here. Epiphany once again on One Ring, so they can't activate it, but they are going to continue to lose life as long as that card is still in play. So drawing the Skull turn here. Kind of wondering if we are wanting to play Ancient Tomb here. Just trying to set up our turn here. But it looks like we spend 3 mana to bounce this Grim Monolith. I'm not sure why. I think because I was a little bit concerned because they have 7 mana to spend on Ugin. I think that's why they were trying to ramp here. So it does kind of slow them down. And I think that's why I wanted to do that. So with the 1 color mana left over, I think it just made sense to just play this Harbinger. Or at least, no, I guess I ignore myself here. I actually just play the Dreadnought. Because I guess if I play Harbinger and if they somehow do cast Ugin, they have a valid target on here. Whereas on Dreadnought, they don't. So now on their upkeep, they exile the top card. They lose 2 life, so now they're down to 1. Opponent spend 2 mana to recast their Grim Monolith. Play Flesh Drinker. Wow. Fresh Breaker, not Drinker. But yeah. They are kind of just run out of outs there, and they just end the game. So we go 3-2. Not bad. So we are here for the deck review after playing our league. Like I said, previously recorded, so I'm just kind of going back after watching the footage, and after kind of watching all of it, kind of made me realize, oh yeah, I made a lot of misplays, made a lot of plays that should have been the right call. Like I could have done a turn 2 Phyrexian Dreadnought with a dress down in one of my games where I think it was against Sultai Beans, game 2. Things like Reanimator where I was probably bouncing the wrong card. So the matchups I think overall felt pretty close, even with the ones that we lost. And going 3-2, I'm still pretty satisfied with it, thinking that we could have at least gone maybe 4-1 overall. But with this deck, I'm feeling pretty confident with this Sunday coming up with the Team Trios event. Not sure what Legacy decks I will be playing against. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of Oops All Spells. We did kind of dodge that throughout this entire league, so I was kind of happy to see that. But we did play against a Reanimator deck that destroyed us 0-2. Of course, I think in our game 2 we could have played a little bit better in that. I mean, who knows? I mean, this could have been also a 5-0 if I was just playing this deck fairly smart, or just... I can't say I'm the best pilot for this deck since this was actually my first run with this deck. I did do a banned version with the Bosch and Roll that I was going to actually try to post up earlier, but I had some audio issues with it, so I just didn't post that up. I could have recorded it, done the commentary like I'm doing here now. But it was also a league where I went 2-3, so I didn't know if that was actually worth posting. Probably should still post it just to kind of show my mistakes and what I could have done better, and seeing how we can kind of go from Bant to Azorius here. But wanted to switch back to Bant here, but we'll kind of close out the deck tech. Overall, the deck felt strong. I think a turn 2 Torpor Orb, following it with a turn 1 Torpor Orb into turn 2 like a stock up or Null Drifter. We didn't do a like turn 1 orb into turn 2 double Dreadnoughts, which I think this deck can easily win on turn 3 with a hand like that. And I would love to see something like that maybe in this upcoming tournament for this Sunday, but we'll see. But yeah, with the deck, I think I kind of want to keep keep it as it is for this coming Sunday. I could see maybe changing out a few sideboard cards like Conqueror, if we're kind of expected to play against a lot of like heavy artifact decks like Mystic Forge or Mono Red Stompy. I think this is probably one of our best sideboard cards overall. Hold Breacher I think was also another great card where I think these matchups could also play a lot of One Rings of the Beanstalk. So I saw a lot of value with these two cards overall. With Lorien revealed, kind of going back to the main board here, we were running at least 3 Ponders. I think I did say in the deck tech I was probably took out one of these missteps for a Ponder. I think, if I remember correctly, I just took out the Ponder for a Lorien revealed. And this card actually did some work. I think worst case scenario we could cycle it just to get an island, or just use it to pitch with Force of Will, or better yet, just hardcast it to draw 3 cards. Overall, this deck had turn 2 plays with like Null Drifter, which I'm definitely a big fan of. I actually kind of like this a little bit more than Dreadnought, in my opinion. As much as I love my old school cards, but Dreadnought definitely has to have a higher payoff with like the Stress Down and Torpor Orbs. At least with Null Drifter, you can at least get value off of this just by drawing 2 cards. And the best part about this is when the card gets cast, you draw the 2 cards. So in order to basically stop this ability, you would have to stifle it, which you would think that there would be stifle in this deck, but I've been told that stifle is not really good in Legacy. Who would have thought? I would think this deck would definitely want to use it, just especially for the namesake of this video. So yeah, I'm gonna basically have this deck posted hopefully before or maybe a little bit after the tournament. But regardless, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you want to see more Legacy content, I will probably be doing another league of this, or maybe doing a different build. I know everything that I've been posting has been all Azorius, and I will be kind of wanting to shift to other decks too, but there might be also like an Azorius. I might be also doing some standard testing, since standard RCQ is just now officially starting, so it might be rebuilding Azorius Control just to kind of see how that's looking like in the new meta. But even though I'm a big Azorius fanatic, I will definitely be posting some video content that's not always just Azorius. But if you guys like seeing this Azorius stuff, follow, like, subscribe here, whatever YouTube content creators say these days, of course. But I appreciate overall you guys just watching the video, and let me know in the comments on what I can improve on, especially with the content here, with my gameplays, what I could have done. I'm sure, given the commentary here, I'm sure I could have done a little bit better overall in this league. But I greatly appreciate any feedback necessary. So once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks again.